Welcome to the E for Endurance podcast. I am so excited to be recording today, mostly just because it's been so long and I really do enjoy doing this. I just unfortunately have not had much time to do so since we came out to California, but more on that in a little bit. It was just a little bit depressing having to literally wipe dust off my microphone box. So I'm just really happy to be sitting here and talking to you guys and also to share my latest experience with trail running. You may know if you follow me on social that my husband and I have been training for a trail marathon. And we just did about a week ago the Sean O'Brien Marathon down in Malibu Creek State Park. It was an awesome race, super hot, super hard course. You'll hear all about it in this episode. But, for any of my listeners who have been with me for a while, you may remember that last summer, Eric and I did the Skyline to Sea Trail, and we did a little before, during, and after episode. So that's kind of what we were going for today. We were keeping it pretty simple. I literally recorded this all on my phone through voice memos, and the quality wasn't too bad, actually. So I hope you enjoy it. You'll kind of just hear about how things went in terms of prep and just my thought process a little bit right before, and then our kind of breakdown of the race, which didn't exactly go as planned. I actually felt great, but you'll kind of see how Eric's race went. But it was really fun, and I feel so grateful for the time off to do such a thing, because we actually were gone for a total of 5.5 days, which is kind of amazing. I mean, again, I have an almost 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so my parents are absolute heroes, and I'm pretty sure they're still traumatized from taking care of my kids while we were away. So that might be our last experience doing this for a little while. But that said, it was a really fun experience. And the occasion was actually my 40th birthday. I just turned 40, and I really wanted to do something epic and fun. Originally, I really wanted to do the Rim to Rim in Grand Canyon, but I couldn't really secure childcare for that. Also, it would have been a horrible idea. Oh my God, we were so not prepared to do that. So I'm actually kind of thankful it didn't work out. It's really very much on my bucket list. I'm totally going to do it soon, or relatively soon, whenever. Actually, I'm probably going to have to wait until the kids are older, to be honest. But yeah, this trip ended up being a really nice combo of relaxation and adventure and pushing ourselves, and then more relaxation. So I'm very grateful. It was a lot of time in the car, but it was nice to kind of just jump around a bit and see different parts of the state, especially since it's been so long since I've kind of been out in California for so long. So yeah, all in all, a great experience. In terms of other stuff going on, just a quick update. Yeah, I guess we're out here for the time being, at least. And as I mentioned, we're looking for a place to live. And the market is horrible. And with both kids not always in school, my older one is, but my youngest hasn't been this whole time. That's why it's been so hard to put the podcast out, because my hours are very, very limited for work, and I have to devote all of them to client work. So whenever I get chances, though, I'm trying to put these episodes out. And the amazing news is my youngest is turning 2 next week and finally gets to go to school, because for some reason in Santa Cruz, it's so weird. There aren't places for under 2 in terms of daycare. It's very odd. So yeah, we're really stoked about that. And hopefully I can get back into more of a groove professionally once that happens. So we'll see where that all falls. And lastly, I just signed up for a 50K race it's up in Mount Tam. So pretty excited for that. That's in November, because as you'll kind of hear, I didn't really quite feel satisfied from this racing experience, just in terms of pushing myself and seeing kind of what I could do. It was a really amazing experience. It was hard. I'm not saying it was easy, but I just didn't get that itch scratch to kind of really race something, or not race from a time standpoint, but just pushing yourself hard, So I'm stoked to get that one on the calendar. I haven't run a 50K in forever, so that will be really exciting. But without further ado, please enjoy our pre, during, and post-race discussions with myself and my husband, Eric. Hey everybody, we are coming at you from Cambria, California. We're just sitting on the water right now, and we decided this would be a really awesome place to record our thoughts and just kind of, summing up what we've been up to recently while prepping for our next event, which is the Sean O'Brien Marathon down in Malibu Creek State Park in 2 days on September 18th. So yeah, if any of my listeners remember, last summer, Eric and I did the Skyline to Sea Trail. We kind of made our own little event there and ran almost the marathon distance out in Big Basin. And we recorded pre and post and during, actually, just to kind of share our experience with you guys. And we thought it would be fun to do this again. So yeah, Eric, what are your thoughts leading up to this race? Do you want to share a little bit about why we chose Sean O'Brien?
Sure. So I had signed up for this race years ago. I couldn't, for the 50K, I couldn't do it at the time. I probably related to kids if I had to guess. And it looks just like a really beautiful area. The hills up there are pretty rugged, but you're overlooking the Pacific. It's quite beautiful. And, this race too is, it's an out and back. If we, I think I would sum it up as to say we're undertrained, underprepared, but excited to have the time to do it. So I think we'll make the most of the day. Because it's an out and back, if things don't go according to plan, we can always duck out and kind of return at a shorter distance, but hopefully it won't come to that, and we'll just have a really beautiful day out on the hills. I'm mostly concerned about the heat.
It's supposed to be a beautiful day, though.
Beautiful, but a little bit warm, even though the rest of the country is kind of sizzling at the moment. This summer we've been training in cooler climates on the coast. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, how much of a factor that's actually going to be when we kind of get up a little bit higher, because it is a little exposed.
Yeah, and for anyone not familiar with Northern California, I mean, we're out in Santa Cruz, but the south end of the county in La Selva, and it is basically foggy all the time. So for any of my clients, they're always seeing me in like a sweatshirt and a puffy vest and a hat, and they're like, wait, I thought you could move to California. Isn't it warm there? And I'm like freezing to death. Yeah, that's kind of what we've been training in, but I'm not complaining. It's been pretty epic training in cooler weather in the redwoods over the summer. But yeah, we're not exactly acclimatized to heat, but I think we'll do okay. We'll make it work. But yeah, just again to put this a little more context, this is my last day as a 39-year-old. Slightly scary. Tomorrow I turn 40, and that's kind of why we decided to enter this race as well, as to celebrate my 40th. It's the day after, and we made a little trip out of it. So drove down from Santa Cruz to Cambria. It's 2.5 hours or so. We're just chilling here for a couple days, enjoying the relaxed vibes and ocean and whatnot. And we went a little shakeout run this morning. There were some mountain lion sightings apparently, so that was a little scary. But thankfully, we were not attacked by many mountain lions. And tested out some new gear. I have a new bladder, which I know nothing new on race day, but mine I discovered was full of black mold. So I would rather not drink out of that. And we're going to drive down to Topanga, an Air BnB we have tomorrow for a couple nights, and it's not too far from the race start. And then we're going to finish our trip with a night in Santa Barbara. So all in all, 5 nights without the kids, pretty amazing, with a big adventure smack in the middle and some relaxation surrounding, which is pretty much like our template for travel, wouldn't you say, Eric?
Yeah.
Much like, our episode from last summer where we did a little pre and post, I thought we'd just chat briefly about our preparation for this event, the nutrition, any other things we want to share kind of going into it. I guess I'll start. We, much like last summer, we do most of our training. Long runs are definitely are in the redwoods. And the shorter stuff is beach and road. We definitely didn't do like your traditional build up for this kind of event. And this is actually my first marathon since having kids. So the last one I did was April 2016. But I don't know, we got like some solid training runs in the redwoods. We got like several 2 and 3 hour runs, lots of climbing. And we also did a 35K event down in Fort Ord, Monterey, which took us a little under 5 hours, and that went pretty well. What are your thoughts on our training, Eric?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, typically, I guess if you're going to try to do a trail race, you know, especially with this kind of profile, you're really focused on time on feet, I think is like a really good indication of, you know, we're not going to be at the front of the pack or anything. I mean, it's if you're trying to just to finish strong, and you can talk about the nutrition piece on the training side, really showing up fresh, showing up without too many injuries, balancing life stress a bit. And ultimately, you know, that 35K, being on your feet for 5 hours is pretty significant. And at the end of that, I think if we had another, you know, 3 or 4 miles to go, I think it would have been okay. And also, you know, because you're already on your feet for 5 hours, you kind of already past like the point where you might normally bonk from, you know, if you didn't kind of have your nutrition dialed in. So I think as long as we're on top of everything, it'll be a fun day out. I mean, I don't think I think I peaked mileage wise maybe 30 plus, but that was a rarity. I would say I've really low mileage for this one, and I think we're kind of relying on a lot of our experience and history and like years and years of kind of doing various things. And you know, if we didn't have that, I would say that 5 hour day, which went perfectly, would have been a lot worse.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it went perfectly, but it did go pretty well. We were taking it super slow. We were walking pretty much every incline, just having a fun day out, because that was a really huge jump from our other long runs. We did, I'm trying to think, I think we did like 15 miles before that, and then jumped up to like, a little over 22. All in all, though, it was a good day. It was a good test of, ability to try out all the nutrition and all of that. I would say, you know, even as a sports dietitian, I don't always get my own nutrition right. I did take in a ton of calories, but I think I overdid it a little bit on the sports drink. I was using Tailwind, and I think I just did a little too much than I had trained for, I was used to. So my plan for Sean and Brian is to cut back a little bit on that, use a little bit more of the gels. I'm doing Spring Energy, and hopefully eat off the aid station tables. You know, they have boiled potatoes with salt, always our fave, and kind of just see how it all shakes out. The aid stations seem to be a little bit spread out, but you know, we have our hydration vests and we're packing tons of stuff in there, so I think all of that will be okay. One thing I will say, though, we are definitely going into this with a lot of life stress and certainly not very much sleep. It's, you know, we've been out here in California living with my parents for almost 6 months now, and it's been, you know, this year, as I know for many people, has been really hard. For us, it started with us all getting COVID, so it's just been a very hard year so far, and I mean, we're just so grateful to have this time and to have a break from the kids. It's the longest we've been away from the kids, so it's pretty epic. But yeah, I mean, no expectations other than just finishing, and just super grateful for this time and this chance to get back to doing these long distances that I love doing, and I'm hoping for, you know, more of these types of adventures, you know, going forward. Any other thoughts before we try to do this thing, Eric?
No, just gonna have fun. That's
Type 2 fun.
Type 2 fun. That's the idea.
All right, so stay tuned and you guys will hear our recap. All right, it is race morning, and I'm taking a break from force feeding myself oatmeal at 4 a.m. to just sit here for a little bit. We obviously didn't get any sleep last night, or at least not much. Not helped by the fact that we discovered our Air BnB, which is amazing, by the way, is such a cool Airbnb, has Showtime, and we are like at least 2 seasons behind on Billions and haven't had Showtime in a really long time. So that didn't end well for us last night. But yeah, so here we are, and we got all our stuff ready. We had a super long day in the car yesterday on my actual birthday, but it was, it's really beautiful down here. We got to chill out in our Airbnb last night and have a simple dinner, thank God, because we've been eating some interesting foods in the days leading up to our race that didn't exactly, not exactly part of our usual race prep, slightly heavier foods. So we were kind of feeling that a bit. But stuck with just plain spaghetti and pasta, or God, I can't even think straight right now. Plain spaghetti and like little sauce last night, and yeah, so can't say I feel amazing right now. Not gonna lie, feeling pretty horrible, but I think that's kind of part of the race experience. I don't know, Eric. You have any thoughts? I'm gonna try to give myself another bite of this oatmeal. Oh my God.
No, I don't have any thoughts.
No thoughts. All right. Let's see how this whole thing shakes out. All right, we did it. It's about 8 p.m. on race day, and we are literally lying in bed. We're so tired. Before we're going to binge some TV episodes of Billions, which our Airbnb has. We're very excited. But we wanted to, just while it's fresh in our minds, talk about the race. And it was not quite the day that we had hoped for. That said, we finished it, and it was a really beautiful course. And our goals, I guess our top two goals were, number one, no one get hurt. So that was overall achieved, and have fun, which I'd say for the most part was achieved. We had some moments in there that were not so fun, but we definitely had some really good times as well. So yeah, let's break it down. We will first talk about the course. Again, we did Sean O'Brien Marathon in Malibu Creek State Park, and both of us, this terrain and the course and everything was new to us. We'd never run there. And having trained in very cool redwoods, we were a little bit worried about the heat, even though I know for here, like a high of 79 is actually really great weather, just knowing that it can get into the 90s. But for us, that's quite warm. So we were a little concerned, and it turns out that was one of the things that was difficult for today. But the course was beautiful. It was really, really, really hard. I logged about 27.6 miles, so slightly over marathon distance, which is fine. And but it was about 5,800 feet of climbing, and since it's an out and back, obviously we also went down. So very, very tricky, not always runnable terrain. We did a lot of hiking. Even I think if we had been, not having such a rough time with the heat, we would have done tons of hiking because there were just some super steep sections. When was that huge climb, Eric?
So, yeah, I mean, so the course is basically breaking down to, there's like 2 miles of like, I would say modest hills, but they're not small, it's just modest. And then there's a climb that goes up like 2,000 feet roughly for 3.5 miles. And at the top of that, there's this peak that's kind of like, it looks kind of like the rock monster from Frozen.
Yeah.
And so it's
totally.
it's really like, it was very steep grade. You can hike up it, but there's just like not a lot of room to kind of run, at least not at the fitness level that we're at. I mean, some of the people at the front of these races are just truly incredible. I mean, they're flying up there, and I don't even know how one achieves that level of athleticism, but it's really impressive to watch. I mean, you just see them like jumping over these things like it's nothing at all, and that was certainly not us.
Yeah.
And so then after that major climb, you're basically, it's undulating, but you're kind of on a ridge, I would say, for the most part, at the top end of the Malibu Creek State Park mountain passes, and it's really quite, on the way out, it was cloudy. We couldn't really see kind of where we were at, which
we were literally hiking into the clouds. It was pretty.
It was pretty cool.
Pretty cool, yeah.
and we knew that this is really probably not a bad thing because again, the sun wasn't really up, and with the clouds, it kind of kept them away for a little bit. But then on the return, because it's kind of an out and back, we got a look at in the sun of all of the the clouds moved, and you could really see out all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And just a full 360 view of all of these surrounding mountains. To say nothing of the areas that were severely burnt out.
Oh yeah, that was trippy. That was crazy.
The major Malibu fires 3 years ago, where a lot of the areas, even the area that we're staying in right now, have was evacuated because the fires were so bad, and so you could see,
scorched
trees. They're just like scorched earth, like really, really. I mean, it's growing back, which is good, but it was just like a very potent reminder of how wild it really is out here, and how so many people live so close to this wild area.
Yeah, and I think just kind of. Well, number one, I know I was worried about the darkness, so, don't worry. The sun, as Eric was teasing me just before we started recording, the sun did rise in the morning, so it did lighten up, but I was, like, mildly freaking out, as in my previous recording. But no, we got going, and it was, as Eric said, it was undulating, it was nice. We had that crazy climb, and, it was quite cold, actually. It was really cold. And I remember I just could not feel my hands or fingers for like the first few miles, but yeah, we kind of got up on that ridge, and you could tell that there must be just insane views, but we couldn't see anything. So I was actually really thankful that we had this out and back, because I had a feeling that the sun would come out and things would get pretty hot but clear as well. So that was kind of a nice part. Normally I prefer loop courses or just something a little bit more interesting where you don't have to go back. But yeah, it was pretty cool from that perspective. And yeah, it was just, this course was very much just lots of really steep ups and downs. And yes, there were some kind of more gentle places, but it was a really hard course.
It was really weird though, because it seemed like there were so many sections, even before like the heat was kind of starting to become a really big factor, and we could talk about that. Like, there were so many sections where it seemed like we ought to be able to run it, and you just couldn't really get into a rhythm, or the rock bed was kind of at a really weird angle that made it really hard to kind of stay,
where all the sand or the loose rocks.
It was just, so there's, like, it wasn't like a traditional California single track where it's narrow, but it's very like well groomed. It looked like you should be able to run it, but there's so many sections where you're like, I don't understand why we can't run this and kind of get some momentum going.
Yeah, I mean, the 35K we did in Fort Ord was definitely like super, super great training for this in many ways, but that day was really it was all cloudy and cool, and I just remember us thinking like, oh my god, if this had been sunny, because it was so exposed, much like this course, like we would have had such a different day, and of course we did.
We probably would have dropped down distance.
Well, maybe. But yeah, I mean, so this course was the other part about it is the aid stations were they were pretty spread out, actually. The first one was at 7.3. I mean, it was fine as long as you filled your bladder and did all the things, and just planned accordingly and planned well, then it was fine. But yeah, and it wasn't a big race either. So like there were chunks of this race where like you really would not see anybody. Although we kind of had some people we were running with, which, we kind of passed them and they'd pass us and the whole thing. But yeah, it was kind of remote in many ways, and Eric was saying at one point, like, I'm really kind of glad I'm not learning this alone. I was thinking the same thing. But yeah, it was a beautiful course. On the way back, just absolutely epic views. Of course, Eric took the action camera out, got some really cool shots, so we'll be posting that alongside this episode. But it was just like, you'd see the valley on one side and all these mountains in the distance, and then you would just see these crazy views of the ocean on the other side. And you're basically like on this ridge, and like everywhere you turn there are these just epic views and these really interesting rocks. And at one point, you're basically kind of rock climbing up these interesting rocks. So it was a really cool course. It was just really hard. And I think some aspects of our training came out. But yeah, anything else we want to talk about the course or mention about the course?
No. I think it was very well marked. I mean, the RD does, the race director does a great job.
Yeah.
This race hasn't run in a couple years due to COVID and the fires. So I think for the local running community, it was kind of a big deal that they're able to kind of put it on, this season. So
everyone was stoked.
It was a good amount of stuff.
It was fun.
Aid station workers were great.
Oh, the crew was great. For sure. We had fun.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now let's talk about the day. And before, I'll let Eric go first. So just kind of before we get into all that, we knew that it was going to take us at least 6 hours. And that was like conservative. It was probably we thought more like 6.5 or maybe even 7. Again, we wanted to finish. We wanted to feel good, have fun. This was supposed to be kind of like a birthday celebratory, just kind of fun. I mean, not just obviously a fun run. Obviously we'd be getting into the pain cave a little bit expected, at some point, but a no pressure run. We just wanted to be together and have fun, but it ended up taking us almost 8 hours for a variety of reasons. And yeah, I'll let Eric kind of share about what your experience was like today.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We started and immediately I had a total breakdown in my nutrition and hydration plan. I was expecting to bring a little bit more than I did. And I was okay for the first half. I think I was okay till about mile 15, mile 16.
No, you were struggling before that.
On the turnaround.
The halfway.
Yeah.
No, the turnaround was at 13.4.
Yeah. So at the turnaround, we're like, okay. So when we got to the turnaround, the sun was really starting to kind of break out.
It was 10:30 in the morning. The race started at 6:30 and 10:30, and that's when the sun came out, and that's when it started to get hot.
Yeah. It might have been a little bit earlier, but in any case, so when the sun came out, I think what happened is I was feeling okay, but I was starting to kind of get behind on fluids, and I'm not really sure what happened exactly, but I think in retrospect, I think I was just getting behind on hydration and I was getting behind on retaining the water. So that plus the heat kind of put me into a hole I couldn't really dig out of. And I started getting all these problems. My energy was all over the place. I was really, really hot. I was stopping a lot. I couldn't run things that were, I would say, super runnable. My decision making was also not where it needed to be. So, we went to one station. I got doused with some ice water, which was great. But then I didn't check and refill my bladder, which was a huge mistake.
I think you just got distracted, and.
But that's true. But I think when you're when you get behind and you're not making good decisions, it's because you're not it's a thinking game, right? It's
sure.
These races are all about, are you thinking clearly? Are you making good decisions? And when you get behind, I think at least for me, the first thing that goes is your ability to make good decisions. And so,
well, that was at 21 miles in, but yeah.
Right.
So that particular station.
Yeah. So I think the wheels kind of came off a bit. And so Claire was doing everything she could to try to kind of help me. And then eventually I ran out of water because of some of those bad decisions, which was really, really bad.
Yeah, that was really bad.
So
that was with 6 miles to go.
So
we
were a little nervous. It was only 6 miles to go, but it was really hot.
And you weren't moving well.
I wasn't moving well. There's a lot of elevation still to go up and down. And, it was getting a little bit dicey. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll weigh in with my thoughts. I think that Eric never really does that amazing in the heat, or at least relative to me. I always do better in the heat, and which makes sense. I'm smaller, and I don't know. You just struggle more in the heat than I do, and it was hot, and you weren't used to it, and we were already pushing kind of our fitness. This was a really hard course. It was. I mean, I think it was fine. We could have done it, but it was just a little too much.
So Yeah, so I think like it kind of got to a bad space, but I think when you think about it, like I never got to a point where I wasn't able to move forward, so I was walking a lot, which was fine. Running was okay in places, but running was okay in places, but I was getting like massive like stomach cramps that it's just all the jostling and it seemed muscular, but I think in retrospect, I think Claire, you're probably right. I was dehydrated. Yeah,
you were way dehydrated. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I was really worried about you. Yeah. Like massively worried. So
like I knew that dehydrated or not, like I was gonna finish, and I felt like I had at least some common sense that I wasn't gonna push myself to the point where I was gonna get like really in trouble. But yeah, so but there were a few times where I'm like, things are kind of like really off the rails a little bit. Like there was a moment where I think some bird kind of swooped down.
No,
I wasn't. Too. Yeah, well, I wasn't sure if that
there
was
like some banshee bird
or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was like, did you see that? So again, I think one of the key signs of dehydration, or even if you're getting a little bit like. This is something that happens at altitude, right? Is that your decision making and your mental clarity starts to slowly drip away a little bit. And so I think those are the moments where I'm like, I feel okay, but I can see that it's becoming harder to do things that shouldn't be so hard.
And this was a marathon, but we were out there for almost 8 hours, so in many ways, and with the terrain and the elevation gain and all of that, it felt like an ultra. It definitely did. And, but yeah, anywho, I'll step back now to my kind of, from my perspective. Basically, I was really nervous. I don't know why I was nervous, but I was pretty nervous in the morning and my stomach was just all nutty. And as soon as we started, it just kind of all melted away. And I was like really excited and just happy to be running and back in kind of this whole space, because again, it's, even though we've been back in it kind of a bit this year on and off, it just feels like it's been a really long time since I've been doing this stuff. And I'm pretty excited to get back into it again, since having kids. But then like, I don't know, we were like kind of on the rolling section in the beginning and it was like mile 2. I mean, barely starting the race. I felt so sick. Like I just felt really queasy. I thought I was going to throw up. I felt really low energy. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is mile 2. Like what is going on? And I was kind of freaking out a little bit. And we were getting into the climbing section and I was just, trying to get nutrition in too. So like, I think it took me like 10 minutes to get a gel in. I just couldn't figure out what on earth was going on because I was doing all the things I normally did. Thankfully it passed, as I was hydrating and sticking to my other stuff that I normally do. I have, my theory is that, cause I took a salt pill in the morning, which I don't normally do. And I was really stupid at doing that, obviously, but I was peeing a ton. I was drinking a lot of water and I just didn't get that much salt in, whatever else I was eating. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a salt pill because I don't feel like drinking more Tailwind before the race. And I remember back in the 35K that I had taken some salt pills during the run and I started to feel really queasy and maybe I need to do my own. I mean, this is just showing like as a sports dietitian, like I also need to really look into and investigate my own sweat rate and salt situation. I think I may have oversalted myself because feeling nauseous is sometimes, something that can happen if you get a little too much salt in. I'm not quite sure like why that would have been the case going in. I suppose I was drinking Tailwind and I had like a gel and all this other stuff. So maybe it was just a little bit too much too soon. But the feeling passed as it normally does, as is the case with a little too much salt. And I felt great. And really like that was my low point of the race, which is kind of ridiculous, but that was really my only low point. And in terms of just how I was feeling, like I had some blisters and, things like that, but
you probably could have finished the race if I wasn't there a couple hours faster.
Exactly. So this is like one of those things where it was a little tricky because we wanted to do this together and Eric and I were talking a little bit about this, before recording that, you know, part of what I love about doing this stuff is like, I love doing this with him. You know, it's an adventure we do together. He really brought me into the whole sport of ultra running. And I mean, I did trail running and stuff like that before, but, and of course road racing and marathons and stuff, but ultras, that's something Eric got me into. And I really just love doing that stuff together. We train together, we do all this stuff together. And, but I am faster than him, and I'm also 5 years younger than him. So, like, we never used to race like road marathons together. It just didn't make sense. Of course, as I've gotten older and I've become like less competitive and just, I don't train as much, like the gap between us is kind of closed and we can now run together and it's not really a big deal. But I feel like on a day like today where he's having a bad day and I'm having a good day and there's heat involved because I do better than heat, it just like widens that gap so much. So I struggled because I wanted to stay with him, obviously. And this is before I became like really concerned about, you know, him doing stuff. And I just wanted to run. I just wanted to run ahead and kind of just do my own thing or not necessarily do my own thing, but I just wanted to move. And for me, stopping or walking is a lot harder often than just running or just moving forward. So all the stop and go or running ahead and waiting or all these things were going on. It was hard on my body, but like mentally it was really hard and I was getting very frustrated. And obviously it's not his fault. It's no one's fault, but it just kind of sucked because, you know, I wanted us just to have a good day out and it wasn't as fun for me. But as soon as I got over that, and I did, and just kind of soaked up the views and was like, you know what, who cares? Because I don't care about time. It was never about the time. And especially when I started to get a little worried about him and just was focusing on getting him through like some really rough patches and I just wanted to keep him moving. That was the most important thing. And we ran out of water. So I was giving him all my water and taking little sips, and thank God I had filled up, but also like, thank God I was feeling really good. So I wasn't concerned about myself, but yeah, so that was kind of the rest of the race. And it was just such a long day. Again, like 8 hours, my God, for a marathon. But I'm telling you, it was, you know, it was a lot of climbing. But yeah, so I think we just like made some important real discoveries that, you know, first of all, again, we kind of achieved what we set out to achieve for the most part. And even though, like, for me, it was just really crappy seeing him suffer in that way. Like, obviously I never want to see him feel bad. And then it also made me realize that I love having these adventures with him, but that maybe also I just want to like do one of these things by myself and see what happens and see what I'm capable of. I'm not really so interested in timing anymore or anything like that, but I think what I didn't really get out of today in the same way that maybe I could have is like that pushing yourself. Like, obviously we pushed ourselves hard today. Like we did. We ran a long distance over a long time, but like really pushing myself and running more and doing all that, I didn't really get to do that today. And I realized I kind of wanted to, and I didn't know that I wanted to. So yeah, Eric's been super supportive of maybe crewing me if I do like a 50K or something else, in the near future. I would kind of like to use my fitness or just not, you know, waste it. It would be great to like enter something, but I'm not sure if realistically that can happen with our childcare and all that.
I mean, you know, you do these races because it's an adventure, and you know, maybe you get to go to some places that you'd never be able to go to if you didn't have your own 2 feet, and so that's really special just to be able to, you know, go somewhere amazing, and kind of see something, or go somewhere and see something incredible. But at the end of the day, I think what really makes it meaningful is that you kind of grow in different ways from every experience. And so even if today your growth comes from figuring out how to be patient in a tough situation, that doesn't have to be like the only area that you can grow. And so you can find those other things or those other races or like these solo adventures, you know, to be able to learn new things about yourself, grow in different ways. And because if you're not really doing that, if you're just kind of, you know, at least for me, you know, you're trying to have an adventure, like it's not an adventure if you know what's going to happen. In fact, most of the time, the best adventures are where things don't quite go according to plan, and you deal with what comes your way and you're able to navigate it and come out the other side, and it may not always have the outcome you want, but you're always going to grow from that. And so, like I agree with you. Like if you have a taste or the clarity that says, I need to find a different way to grow or a different, thing to try, you got to go after it, because that, it's just going to make you a better, more satisfied person, I think. Right. So I think that's like, like, I don't know about you, but like I'm getting to the age with this stuff where like the risks continue to go up. Right. And so if you're not getting something out of it beyond just the experience itself, but something that can help you kind of rediscover something you didn't know about yourself, I mean, that's really where, what makes it so meaningful. So,
by the way, the people we were running with were like, how old? There was like an older guy and an older woman. How old? They must have been in their 60s?
The guy said he was 64.
Okay.
And the one woman who, so we actually, at our 13.4 mile turnaround, it was also, it wasn't close to our marathon cutoff, but because of the terrain, the 50K race had a really strict cutoff. And so we were there when we saw a bunch of people just get the cutoff and just miss the cutoff. And so one of the women who just missed the cutoff, she basically turned it into a marathon and turned back around. Yeah, she must have been in her 60s. I mean, really impressive.
Yeah, they were awesome. But no, I hear you, and I think, again, once I had kind of accepted that this was just going to be, it was a fun day out, and we were just going to take our time and take the time we needed, and I was just going to deal with what it was. Like, I tried to just soak up the atmosphere. Like, the views were crazy. Like, I just kept stopping and looking at the views. Or I would say to myself, like, because I just was always trying to keep you in my eyesight. And I was like, you know what? I can't really run this whole stretch or the rest of the race, or like just crush the rest of the race, which I kind of like a part of me wanted to do. But I can like run up this like crazy mountain section just here and then wait for him, and soak up the views while I wait. So I kind of created like these little challenges for myself to keep myself kind of engaged and not feel, I don't know, because my normal state is just like me sitting around. Like, I can't do it. I'm so bad at relaxing, as you know. I'm so bad at just like waiting and sitting around. So I don't know. It was a good exercise for me to just like stop, be present, look at the insane views, soak it all up, and be there for you, So, I think it was all in all a great experience, and I am really, really freaking tired. That's all I have to say about that. Anything else you want to add, Eric?
No, I mean, look, it's easy to say afterwards, like, it was a good experience, when the last like hour or two were really just not. They
were brutal.
They were brutal.
I was just trying to keep you going.
Yeah, but again, it's like when you really think about it, like what'd you get out of it? It's like, wow, like I really, you really went to some. I would say, even though this was incredibly tough, it didn't come close to some of the like the darker places or darkest or lowest lows I've been in other races, where because you're trying to really dig deep, trying to really perform at your absolute best, you're really scraping the bottom of the well. That's not what I had here. This was really more like, okay, I know I can keep going. Let's do it safely. Let's make sure we have a good day. So even though it sucked, it wasn't like, it wasn't the low where you're like really like, you're just like ready to quit. Okay, I just need to quit. I mean, to be fair, there was no way to quit because there was nowhere to go. So I think that
which is why I was scared.
So it kind of raised the stakes a little bit, but at the same time, because there was nowhere to go, you really had to get your head right. And I think we both did that very quickly, where we're like, okay, we have to finish this because there's really no other choices here. And so we kind of, if it means walking, fine. If it means sharing water, fine. Like, we'll just have to kind of like...
This isn't the first time I've basically given you all my water, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
But, whatever. That's the most important thing is, we're safe and we're here and we did it. And now we have our feet up.
I never felt like I was in any real danger, because if it really get bad, like you could just stop and create shade, or you could, like, there's things you could do, like, really, and there were enough people out there.
There were people like within the vicinity ish, so yeah.
I wasn't throwing up. I wasn't, like, I was still able to walk and move forward. Like, so again, it wasn't like, oh shit, like I got to drop. What do I do? Do we like what are our options here? And I've had races, I don't know if you have, where like I literally couldn't take a step forward. I couldn't do anything at all. And you just want to pull the plug. You're just looking for any excuse, any opportunity to just get the hell out of there. And this didn't feel like that at all. Yeah, even though it was really, really hard.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just grateful that you were able to finish and you're okay now. We had a nice big sushi dinner, and we're in a much better place now, all showered and cleaned up.
No, it's all good. Hey, look, I mean, it's we're stronger, and we had a really fun day, and ultimately, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. All right, Sean O'Brien recap. I think we covered it. It was a great race. Highly recommend it. And we're also staying a kick-ass Air BnB, so if anyone needs an Air BnB rec, we can send it your way. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in today.
So that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And I would love to hear more from you guys. Like, what are you training for? How's it going? What's your nutrition? How are you prepping? How did it go? Please hit me up, eatforendurance@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, where I'm most active, or Facebook at Eat for Endurance. Would love to hear from you. I also have some athlete nutrition profiles coming your way. I know that's what most of you guys listen to this show for. So I got one coming up tomorrow, actually. I'm recording with someone who's really awesome, and hope to line some more up for you guys this fall. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, people you want to see on the show, I always welcome that. Again, you know how to reach me. And until then, happy running, training, whatever you guys are up to, and talk to you soon.